I was super stressed because even if I had some savings, every day it gets lower. I hate not having income. Even now, I have a good amount of cash, but I don't have a fixed project. I have a few ones, but I don't have the regular income that I wanted. I hate that. I just hate being in a situation where I have less income. It was super stressful. Honestly, for the logo app, it was timing. It was a good idea, but it was just the beginning of the AI hype. People were curious about AI, and a lot of people bought a logo out of curiosity to see what it was able to do. So I think it was really about the timing for this one. If I launched that today, no way. I couldn't make it work. Timing played a massive role for this one. I would like to say, yeah, it's my skills, whatever, but no, it's not true. It's just good timing. Of course, good execution, because I made the app in 48 hours, like the basic. So I was able to get feedback really fast from that. It was just a type form. So people could fill their info, like what they want in the logo, pay, and then I would manually use the AI to generate the logo and send it to them. I did pre-orders. So I wasn't sure that it would work. So I just made a landing page, added a Stripe payment link, and I was like, okay, if you're interested, you can get it. And I will do it in like a month. And if that didn't work, I would just refund everyone who purchased and move on. But it actually got an insane amount of sales. I think 10,000 of sales in the first 24 hours, something like that. So it was like, oh shit, there is definitely some interest. When I was just starting out, I had no idea if it was going to work. I had no idea what I would do with my life. So lack of certitude is absolute number one thing. And I think that's the case for every entrepreneur. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And the main thing is just lack of certitude. Maybe tomorrow my business is not going to perform as well and I have no idea why. So first I have this mindset that don't get emotionally attached to your products. And I think that was the main reason why I was able to ship that many apps in the first year. I was mainly focused on shipping lots of apps because I wanted to learn. So it's like I had a reason to ship lots of apps. I also didn't know what was working. So it was a good way for me to learn. Now I can afford to ship a bit slower and better quality products, take a bit more time to polish the edges. The funny thing is I have 40,000 followers on Twitter and I launched an app, I think in October, which was one I spent the most time working on. Like I spent 1 month working on it, which is something I never do, but that's my favorite app by far. I launched it and I got 2 sales. That's one of the worst performer I had. And so I was a bit depressed, was like, okay, this is the market. I was disappointed, but I don't know. It's not, you have to get over it. You have to not get emotionally attached to your product. I was really disappointed because I really hoped that this one would work and I could work on it full time. I still work on it. It's still active. It gets users, but it's not as much as I wanted. I also haven't done much marketing for it, so that also doesn't help. But yeah, it's just you have to really see your app as an experiment. I'm going to learn this. Is this going to work or is this not going to work? I think this is the difference between art and, I don't know, business. It's like art, you do it for yourself. So obviously you get emotionally attached to it. You want to make everything perfect, but that's not business. Business is you solve a problem for people and that's it. If your solution is good enough, they will pay for it. So it doesn't have to be perfect.
Behind the Hustle.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Behind the Hustle, the show where we fight back against success porn on social media. If you're anything like me, you're sick and tired of being bombarded with endless success stories, and you know they're just the tip of the iceberg. I interview successful entrepreneurs about the realities of their journey, the setbacks and failures, mental health consequences, and most importantly, how they endured for a long time before ultimately finding success. No matter where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, hopefully this is a reminder that you're not alone when things get dark and a source of motivation for you to keep going. My guest today is Nico Jeannen. Nico has been an entrepreneur from day one. He dropped out of high school, worked a corporate job for 3 days, resigned, and has been working for himself ever since. Then came 5 years of no results. Facing the reality of having to go get a job, he woke up one day and decided to learn how to code. 2 months later, he was writing apps. Almost all of them failed, but eventually 2 of them sold for almost $300,000 combined. He went from hanging by a thread to pumping out apps full time almost overnight. Nico, I am very interested to learn how you survived for so long before getting your first win. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I got my first big success recently, but it wasn't 5 years of pure failure because I still had my freelancing activity. I had some revenue. It wasn't that much. I was making a living from it. It's just not nowhere near what I wanted. I was still making a living and a pretty good living, actually.
My first question is, you resigned from your first job, just got out of high school, worked the first job. Presumably you don't have any entrepreneurial skills. What was going through your mind when you made that decision?
I was working in a bank, and it was actually the region headquarters. It was like a pretty prestigious thing, but turns out the job really sucked. I was supposed to do welcoming clients, etc., but they put me into like scanning files. They had to scan like thousands and thousands of files, so it was just doing that all day. Just take the file, scan it, next one, Jack, like robot work. So I was like, yeah, fuck that. I'm not. It was like a summer job, so I'm not spending my summer doing that stupid thing. I know that I don't want to work for someone else. I had the feeling that entrepreneurship is something I wanted because I had a Minecraft server back then, and I was managing it like a small company. It was a really tiny scale, but I even made a little bit of money, maybe $90 for me back then when I was a teenager. It was huge. So I already had a taste for that. I was like, okay, maybe I can create my own company. So I just started to take notes, write every idea I had on a post-it. I still have the post-it, actually. I think it's like my parents. I still have it. But yeah, I just wrote every idea I had. And then, yeah, I was like, okay, I'm just going to try. And then that's how I got started with everything.
You resigned from your job. What is your first move? This is an incredibly bold decision, especially since you have no entrepreneurial skills other than this Minecraft thing, which is impressive but small scale. So what do you do first?
Once I had my potential ideas wrote, I tried to apply. There was like a local, I don't know, startup club, something like that. I don't know how to call it, but yeah, something for like startups, entrepreneurs, specifically for young people. I was like, okay, I'm just going to apply there and see how it goes. I arrived the last day of where you can apply, and I ended up being accepted. So my base idea was doing WordPress websites for, I don't know, barbers or like whatever small business, because I knew how to use WordPress thanks to my Minecraft experience where I had to make my own website. So I got accepted, and it's not education, it's just once a week you meet with other entrepreneurs, and sometimes you have someone who come to make not really a speech but to talk about a specific subject, like a presentation. So I went there and I was like, okay, I'm just going to do WordPress website. I didn't know where to get started, what to do, so I was just learning for probably 6 months. I didn't really do anything. I was just trying to learn more about entrepreneurship. Then I met a guy who was doing a brand of cloth made in France. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make my own brand of ties for Swedes, like made in France. I don't know why. I liked dressing well back then. So it's just, okay, I'm just going to try that. And it was totally random. But then I started going to like not manufacturer directly, but any of those local shops where they can tailor stuff for you. So I was like, hey, can you make ties? Just randomly asking them if they could produce tie, etc. Obviously it didn't went anywhere, but like that was my first real thing where I actually did like act on it. So I went to see potential suppliers. I even got some samples. I made a website. I started writing blog posts. And yeah, that's how that's, I would say, my very first like real project. Like I really got in. And then I joined a Facebook group of entrepreneurs. It was like a digital marketing courses that I took, and there was a Facebook group. And I met a guy who was doing drop shipping. So dropshipping is like e-commerce, but you don't have inventory. I think lots of people are familiar with it now. Back then it was pretty new. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to try this thing. I got a few sales, and yeah, it didn't really work, but I got familiar with Facebook ads, digital marketing, like the whole online business thing. And after that's, thanks to that, I managed to get my first freelance gig. That's how I really got started making actual income. That took probably 2 years from the moment I got started to the moment I made my first money. Maybe slightly less, but something like that.
Did you make any money or get any customers from doing the WordPress service?
No, it's just a random idea I didn't act on.
So that was a zero. And then you started getting a few sales, like figuring out how to market products online and have them drop ship, right? This process took 2 years. What were you doing in that period of time for income?
I was living at my parents because I didn't have any income. I literally had €2.22. Back then, I even tried to make YouTube video about that. They're not available now, but I still have the video with the screenshot with my bank account, €2. So yeah, I have no income basically. So yeah, I didn't really, that's how I did. I just stayed at my parents because I was still young, just after high school. So that was the only option for me.
€2 to 300,000. What a story.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Took way longer than I hoped, but yeah.
This drop shipping project opened your eyes to
Mhm.
the world of online advertising. And I was just doing some research on you online. You've spent, I guess now you have a online advertising skill set. Did you monetize that as a service for people or for your own businesses or both?
So I first did it only for myself. It was just managing my own product, launching ads, etc. Back then it was really new. Facebook ads, like it was just starting. People didn't know how to run ads, etc. So I was like, I'm not going to say I was one of the first because obviously lots of people try to learn. I was in the first generation of people who knew how to run ads on Facebook. I had the experience and got my first gig by talking with entrepreneurs. Someone asked me, hey, I don't want to do the Facebook ads myself. I don't understand whatever. Do you like, they asked me if I wanted to do it for them. I got the referral or contact or whatever through someone I met at the Entrepreneurship Club. It was like, hey, if you're interested, I can put you in touch. He gave me the contact and I ended up working for them as a freelancer, managing their ads, while my e-commerce never really took off. But I had the skill set to make theirs take off. When I started working with them, it was 200,000 of sales per year. After 2 or 3 years, it was between 2 and 5 million. Obviously, it's not just from my ads. There were a lot of things, especially COVID and stuff like that. Like the sales online exploded. But yeah, we grow the website a lot. And I got a few other contracts. That's how I got my gig and my main source of income after that.
How has online advertising changed since when you started through today?
Way more expensive and way more restricted. Back then you can just run ads and no problem, anything will work, but now they have very specific restrictions. You cannot say some specific words, etc. Like basically what happens, Facebook ads really blew off in 2016, 2017. So when I started going in there, and back then it was just the priority of Facebook is first make Facebook money, then make advertisers money, and third user experience. You could get away with really ugly ads and it worked for a while, but they changed things. I don't remember exactly when, but they changed things eventually. And the new priority were then user experience, make Facebook money, then advertisers. So advertiser were the very bottom. It got much harder. You need to make better ads visually and in general to compete. It's not just about bidding. Before, even if you had a shitty ad, you could just blow the budget and it would work. But now you need to have ads that create like good user experience. So
not only is it more expensive, it's more competitive and more challenging.
yeah,
You get into the digital ad space, you're making a little bit of income, but at some point you get desperate enough that you're like, I need to learn how to code to open up a new pool of opportunity for myself. What pushed you to the point where you're like, okay, I just need to do this or else I'm going to have to get a job?
The thing is, I had one main client, a clothing company, like a woman fashion company. It was my main client. I didn't had anyone else. I had a few gigs here and there, but not really anything to generate income. So that was my sort of only source of income. And what happened is, I think after 5 years or something, my client was like, hey, look, we found someone cheaper. I'm just going to go with them. Long story, but yeah, he basically fired me. I'm still in really good terms with him because it's just business. But yeah, I basically lost my main source of income. I had a few savings because I was making a good amount of money and I was living in Asia. So it costed me very little to live per month, but I had a few, maybe 1 year of savings. I was like, okay, I need to find something else because my e-commerce was not working. I got sales, but just no profits. And I got a bit fucked up by the supplier and everything. So I was like, okay, I know for sure that I do not want to have a supplier or like a single person that can mess up the whole thing. So e-commerce was nope. Freelancing was like, I didn't have any other client. I didn't have any process to find clients. So it was a little nope. So the only thing I could think of is just making apps because I'm 100% responsible for the value production. No one can fuck me up. If there is a bug, then it's on me. I'm the only point of failure. So this is exactly what I was looking for. I only see this option, so I guess I'm just going to learn to code.
So it was out of not desperation, but you just had a bunch of experiences where things out of your control resulted in a negative outcome for you. And you were like programming something where it's just me and my computer. And if I can control what I do, I can control the output, right? And if I'm right about my idea and the marketplace, it will work. So that's all correct. And I agree with that line of thinking, but learning to program is very difficult. I am not anywhere near as good at programming as you are, but I'm about as good as putting together basic React apps and everything from the front end to a very basic back end. And I worked pretty hard at coding, but I would take months off at a time. So all in, it took me like 2 years to get to that level. And you're saying it took you 2 months to get to a place where you could put out a production app that had enough utility for someone to use. What was that like? How did you learn how to code? What resources did you use? And what kind of time did you invest in making that happen? I assume it was like 24/7, all day, every day, learning how to program.
I learned to code in 2 months, like the basics, but to actually make something good, it's been almost 3 years now. I would say my coding skills now are good enough. I learned the basics in 2 months, but it took me 3 years to be good at it. And I say good, but I'm not even like great at it. I'm like decent. I was like, okay, I need to learn. And there is this gap between where I am and where I need to be. The bridge is learning to code. The faster I can get done with that, the faster I will be able to move on and continue business and focus on other stuff. I was like, okay, I'm just going to try hard. I don't care what it takes. And I just took a hotel room for 2 months. It was pretty comfortable because I wanted to be able to focus so I don't have to think of other stuff, noise or whatever. So I took something pretty good, which is fairly cheap in Bali. And yeah, I just took, like, I think I took first a course to see if I would understand the very basics. I was always a bit nerdy, especially with my Minecraft server. So I was familiar with tech and really small concept, but I wanted to learn for a while. I just never could. So I took CS50, which is like a free course to give you the basics of programming to see if I could understand. Right after that, I took like a course on Udemy to make web apps. So it's different. You get the basics of programming, if, while, so stuff like that. So I took a Udemy course to learn web apps, to make like actual website that I could publish and that where people could. And yeah, so after 2 months, I was able to make my first mini app. It wasn't a commercial app, just a small project for me. I think one of my very first was like a game. It's like cards or whatever. It's just, you can just mix card like made with a web app. I just keep making a bunch of things. And then I think my first really project was like AI copywriting tool or AI blog post writer. It's like AI was just, it was really new back then. It's just like ChatGPT wasn't even existing. So I made like an app to do copywriting stuff. So for example, if you need a headline or a copy for your ads, then you can use that. It was really ugly. It was really, the interface was terrible, but somehow I got 2 users. So that was my first commercial app and I managed to get 2 users. So I was super happy and that really motivated me. I got one because it was a friend of mine. He was doing e-commerce and was looking for something to make his description. I was like, hey, just use my app, and he paid for it. The other one was a totally random person. I tried to run an ad on Reddit, super cheap, and I got 1 customer. And then after that, nothing, no matter what I tried. But yeah, I got my first 2 paying customers very quickly. So that was a really nice motivation for me. And yeah, that's how I basically learned to the point where I made my very first app.
After you built your first app, you had a couple users, you're still not making money, right? Then there's like a period of I'm looking at your website, you made like 20 or something apps over a period of 2 to 3 years. What are you doing for money during this period of time? It sounds like you've made a lot of decisions to preserve your ability to keep trying, right? You do not have a very high burn rate. You made some savings from doing service-based work, advertising, like consulting for ads. And then now you have a little bit of savings, you have a super low burn rate. So you're just in a position where you can continue to keep trying. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. So I had maybe 1 year savings. So I was like, okay, I should be fine for a year. I found the cheapest room I could find. I was living in it's like a co-working, but you can rent rooms. So I was renting a room there and I got like free Wi-Fi, water. I was paying maybe $500 per month for everything. So Wi-Fi, water, cleaning, everything. And I was just working all day in Asia and in Bali, at least back then. Now it's a bit more expensive in Bali, but maybe $2 or $3 per meal. I was eating almost the same thing at every meal, like $2 chicken and rice. So that's why my savings could be a bit stretched. I was like, okay, now I can think of making apps. I can keep shipping. I don't have to look for a job or whatever. So I have this. And worst case, I know how to code, so I can always find a job as a worst case scenario. I made my environment so I could live and just focus fully on making software until I was making income from it.
And what was your mental state during this period? Were you happy since you made those decisions? Tell me about that.
I was super stressed because even if I had some savings, every day it gets lower. I hate not having income. Even now, I have a good amount of cash, but I don't have a fixed project. I have a few ones, but I don't have the regular income that I wanted. I hate that. I just hate being in a situation where I have less income. It was super stressful. I wasn't happy in that. Like I was really grinding, but I know exactly, okay, I need to focus on 1 year, make apps, try things, learn SEO, learn to adapt advertising for software. I had a bunch of things that I knew I had to do. So I had a really clear path. The first app for copywriting didn't really go anywhere after the first 2 users. So I ended up giving up on it. Then I tried to make a chatbot, like AI chatbot. I think I was one of the very first to make that. It was before ChatGPT, before all the automation. So it was really annoying to do. People didn't even know what AI was. So they were like, I tried to email people like saying, hey, how do you handle support? Would you be interested? Blah, blah, blah. They didn't understand what it was doing. Like, so I gave up on it. And yeah, I just keep shipping a few more projects until to the point where I made an app to generate logo using AI because for my previous project, I didn't want to pay a designer to make a logo. So I was using AI to make it. And yeah, no. One night I was like, hey, maybe I can make an app from that to generate logo with AI because I know how to do it. So I just have to automate it. I worked on it for 48 hours, posted on Twitter. It went viral. The first one I sold for 65,000 plus around $20,000 of profit. So that was a nice safety net in addition to the little savings I had.
How long was it between when you first started learning how to code and selling the first app for 65 grand? Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Also, if you know any entrepreneurs who went through a period of real struggle or failure before becoming successful, let me know in the comments. I'd love to interview them. The more stories we can tell on this channel, the more entrepreneurs will be inspired to keep going when it gets dark and achieve the freedom we all want in life. All right, back to the video.
So that would be around 6 months because
6 months. I didn't realize that it was that fast. Most of your period of quote unquote failure was before learning how to code when you were just generating income as a digital advertiser and most of your like entrepreneurial projects weren't working. Once you learn how to code, you were able to generate income from your own entrepreneurial projects relatively quickly.
I had lots of failure. It's just that I iterated really fast. I was making at least one app every 2 weeks or something like that. Maybe slightly less every 3 weeks. But yeah, there was a bunch of others that I forgot to mention that also failed. But the logo app was my first big win, I would say. And from them it snowballed because then I got people following me on Twitter. In February, 4 months after I created the app, I sold it. And then, yeah, that's where it started to really snowball. Then I tried other apps that didn't really work. And then I had another one, etc.
What do you think allowed you to be successful? That the speed of iteration, you just have a knack for ideas? Are your ideas average and you just tried so many of them that eventually one worked? Or do you actually think you have a good eye for selecting ideas and how you spend your time?
Honestly, for the logo app, it was timing. It was a good idea, but it was just the beginning of the AI hype. People were curious about AI and a lot of people bought a logo out of curiosity to see what it was able to do. So I think it was really about the timing for this one. If I launched that today, no way. I couldn't make it work. Timing played a massive role for this one. I would like to say, yeah, it's my skills, whatever, but no, it's not true. It's just good timing. Of course, good execution because I made the app in 48 hours, like the basic. So I was able to get feedback really fast from that. It was just a type form. So people could fill their info, like what they want in the logo, pay, and then I would manually use the AI to generate the logo and send it to them. It wasn't scalable, but I got users from that. I got feedback. I was able to improve the app. Then I made a better version. Thanks to the feedback I had, the better version was actually good enough for the general public. So yeah, it was, I would say, timing plus good execution, like fast execution and iteration.
How do you get feedback on those projects before you had a social media presence?
The good thing with Twitter, and okay, it changed now, but at least back then I had barely any followers, but the idea was really cool, like making logo with AI. So the post went viral. It just went viral. So I got lots of people interested and I just asked the customers. So people who paid with the type form, I sent them an email if they had any feedback or etc., like talking with them a little bit. It's no secret or anything. It's just talking with users, basically.
When you say it went viral, the algorithm just took over and distributed your post to a bunch of people who didn't follow you.
Yeah, correct.
All right, so that's a function of timing and AI being interesting and new.
And I think lots of people, there's the indie maker community and they see people like Peter Levels or maybe me or Mark Liu, etc. There is a big community, and there are lots of people who want to replicate the success, and it's learned. But the thing is, that kind of thing, for example, making logo, it only worked once. Like once that it's not a novelty anymore, it completely loses its effect. If I was the third one to make that, the post wouldn't have been viral and I wouldn't have had distribution in the first place. So that's something to keep in mind. If you are the first one to do something that is actually cool or that is new, etc., you will get an advantage, like first mover advantage. But if you're not the first one, you will need to find another distribution channel. That's why like OpenAI, they're super popular because they were the first one to really make an interface to chat with AI. But now there are lots of other companies. It's just that they're not the first. So it's harder for them. It's not incredible. So people don't really want to talk about it.
What you just described is still a result of you iterating quickly. Because if you iterate quickly, the odds of you doing something where you're the first one to do it just go up. If you make a bunch of decisions that preserve your ability to you iterate fast, the chances of you getting lucky and releasing something that's new and novel is much higher. And then hopefully on top of that, if your idea selection is good and it's a good product and sustainable, it can potentially grow into something that pays you money for a long period of time. How do you select ideas today? You're pumping out apps all the time. I even saw on your website in the last couple months, you released 2 apps or something. Okay, you wake up one day and you start writing an app. How'd you get the idea?
So it really depends. I got different processes. Like for the logo, it's just something that I was using myself. I had this problem where I wanted the logo that was unique and not just the same icon you can download on free websites, but I didn't want it to pay for designer. And it turns out that this new AI could do it. I tried to play around with it. I did the research, etc. And I ended up being able to make a logo generator. So this is the best way, I think, to find problem is to find ideas, is to find problem you have and create solution, because it's likely that other people have this problem too. So I think that would be, in my opinion, the best thing. The second one is to just listen to what people talk about. For example, on Twitter, I noticed that lots of people were curious about ads, I think last year in January, 1.5 years ago. I saw lots of people like people who make SaaS, like software, etc. They're like, hey, I'm curious about Facebook ads. They were talking about it. So I have the experience in Facebook ads. I have proven experience, like I have experience in Facebook ads, but I also grow my own software with it. People were looking for courses recommendations. So I was like, I might as well just make my own guide and sell it because they know me. So they will probably prefer to buy it from me, someone who has the experience in software than some random person on Udemy who talk about ads in general. I launched a guide for Facebook ads and I got lots of sales from that because I just noticed that people were talking about that, were asking that, and I had the skills to do it. That's talking with your users. In my case, that would be people on Twitter. I didn't directly talk with them. I just noticed that lots of people were curious about it and looking for recommendations. So you can sometimes smell the opportunity. And I think this is the either first or second best way. Like both are as good. And I think the last one is the one I used for the last app I sold for 200,000 is just, I was actively looking for an idea I could grow with Facebook ads. I know there was Whisper and stuff like that. I know I wanted to do something with AI productivity. I had the problem myself where I wanted to write something like a Twitter post, but I didn't want to write. I wanted to see if I could just type it out. And from that, yeah, so it's still the same. It's just like having a problem and finding a solution. I would say this is the very best thing. You can also do SEO research to see how many for keywords, how many clicks they have, etc. But I didn't really got anything good from that. For me, it was actually the best thing is solving problem I have, looking at what other people are interested in.
I want to laser in on you selling the Facebook ads guide or course or whatever it was. This was last year or something, so by no means is Facebook advertising new. The market for digital advertising education is huge and incredibly crowded. There are unlimited free resources to learn how to advertise effectively. So with that in mind, if I were you, I absolutely would not have done what you did. And yet you did it and made money. In the face of all that competition, if you're just thinking through it logically, why would I do that? Because there are unlimited free resources that are very high quality. Why did you decide to write the guide and sell it?
Mm-hmm. So the thing is, like 90% of the resources about Facebook ads are for e-commerce, not for software. When you do e-commerce, you have a product, so you can take pictures of the product and use it in the ads, etc. But with software, you don't have that. It's a different process. You don't use the same event. It's not like the standard Shopify thing. The process is different. So I did it myself. I knew how to adapt my knowledge into software because I grow my app using Facebook ads. And I knew that there wasn't many resources about that specifically, about software, and especially from people with experience. There are lots of people who talk about it, but they don't have first-hand experience. I had a first-hand experience, and this is incredibly valuable. I had an audience on Twitter at this point. Actually, I don't know it at all. Maybe between 10,000 and 20,000, because I was posting almost every day. I grew an audience pretty quickly. So I had an audience on Twitter, and I didn't come into the course right away. I did pre-orders. So I wasn't sure that it would work. So I just made a landing page, added a Stripe payment link, and I was like, okay, if you're interested, you can get it. And I will do it in like a month. And if that didn't work, I would just refund everyone who purchased and move on. But it actually got an insane amount of sales. I think 10,000 of sales in the first 24 hours, something like that. So it was like, oh shit, there is definitely some interest. So yeah, I was like, okay, I'm just going to make the course. And it took me maybe 1 week to go from zero to having the landing page, the copywriting done, everything. Like, again, I didn't went all in, made a course, wasted 3 months, and then wasn't sure of the result. I didn't want, I knew it was time consuming to make the course. So I wanted to be sure before going in. So yeah, that's how I went from, hey, maybe there is potential to, oh, I should do it.
Do you think this could have been successful if you did not have an audience?
There would definitely have been some sales, but the thing is, I was posting every day and people knew I grew my app using Facebook ads. I think that's the main factor that made it work. I had the trust and it snowballed because lots of people bought it and they recommended it because it actually did the job of explaining how to do ads. This trust factor really helped do things faster. When I was starting, I made a free marketing course because I noticed lots of people were terrible at marketing and I wanted to grow my audience. So I was like, I'm just going to make a free marketing course. It was free. It got barely any users because people didn't buy just the knowledge. They bought the knowledge from someone who actually did it and that they know about. So this trust factor really played a big part. Yeah. I don't think without an audience, I don't think it would have worked. And this is typically the kind of product where having an audience is important. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked as well.
Let's talk about social media and online organic marketing. Was that always part of your strategy to build your career as an entrepreneur? Or is it something that you just did for fun on the side, engaging with the community, and it ended up delivering value to you once you started creating things that were interesting?
In general, I don't really like putting myself out there. I'm really introvert. So I never planned to have 40,000 people on Twitter. If I show that to the me of 2 years ago, I would, wow, like this is insane. No way. But yeah, it just happened. I think I got on Twitter because a friend of mine told me, hey, you should go on Twitter. There are lots of people doing stuff like you, startup, software, etc. So maybe you can meet people or find customers. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to try. I was posting on like indiehacker.com, which is a website for small startup, etc. Twitter, like a bunch of, maybe a little bit of Reddit, just trying to find like-minded people. My profile ended up getting lots of users because I just posted everything I was doing, like the first few apps I made, then how I sold the app, and it just naturally grew because I was doing things that people were interested in. So yeah, it just happened. It didn't.
How would you grow a social media audience today if you were starting from zero?
I would say when I was starting, I wasn't posting much. I was just interacting with people in their comments, and you create relationship with them so they follow you, and that's how I grow maybe my first 500 followers. And that's where I started making the AI logo, which was a cool thing. So even people who don't know me directly were interested and they started following me. And yeah, just posting cool stuff. I think posting interesting stuff or useful things is just what makes people on social media. But at the beginning, it's just interact with other people. You're there to make friends, basically. I was there to make friends, and that's how I grew my first few, maybe I would say up to 1,000. And after that, it was mainly from the post I was making. So yeah.
And what about frequency of posting? Do you still post every day?
No, not at the moment. I actually stopped. I used to post every day, interact with people every day. If you look at my follower curve on Twitter, it grew like that and then flat because I stopped doing that. I'm still there. I post every few days, but as of right now, I don't really have anything interesting to talk about. So it's either when I launch something new or if there is one-time thing that I post, but it's not like before where I was just discovering and sharing stuff. I don't have a main project at the moment that's good for that. So right now I don't post that much, but at the beginning, yeah, I was posting almost every single day.
Have you faced any haters with what you're doing? Because typically haters come hand in hand with social media. So you're posting a lot, you're creating stuff, you're putting yourself out there. What degree of hate did you face and how did you handle it?
Honestly, not that much. There are a few people, but I just mute or block them, and that's it. Compared to other people, it's not that much. I don't know why. For example, if you take YouTube, I have my friend's Mark. He's maybe 100,000 subscribers, and he posts video about startup, but people are like, oh, you're not a real entrepreneur, etc., etc. Like he got lots of hate messages. But then when I post my videos, I mainly get positive message. I think on the last video I published, which is my best performing one, I probably got 2 hate messages from people, and that wasn't even relevant. I'm really open. Lots of people mainly post their wins, but I also post the bad stuff. So I think that keep haters in check, I would say, because they're like, oh, he's not lying. I'm open, and I think that helps a lot.
Totally agree. It's part of the reason I created this show, because everyone just talks about wins, and I think that people relate a lot more to losses and failures. So on YouTube, you have 3 videos and 10,000 followers. How did that happen?
Wait,
you just posted good
already?
videos? You got like 9,000 subscribers or something ridiculous for 3 videos.
Wow. Damn. A few days ago, I was at like 6,000. So actually, yeah, YouTube, that's an interesting one. I always wanted to post on YouTube, but I didn't really had anything interesting to post about. And I didn't, especially with dropshipping, you don't want to put your face out there. Hey, I do dropshipping. It's not really perceived well. When I was just starting out, I was making videos in French. It was really silly videos, no editing. It was super boring. I stopped because I didn't have anything to post about. And I think last year I was like, hey, maybe I can just try to post, to make a video about how I sold my startup for 65,000 and then I made it in 48 hours. I think that's pretty interesting. I spent, I think, a week just same when I was coding, just video editing. Like I had the really basic notion, but how to make visual effects, anything to make a really good video. So I really did that nonstop for a week. I made the video for, I think I worked on it for 1 or 2 weeks. I don't remember. But yeah, so I just, again, try hard for, I think 3 weeks in total to learn video editing and make the video. I had good references. I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted something not boring, because I hate people just talking for 1 hour in the camera. I made the kind of video I want to watch with nice effects, like a documentary, something you could watch on Netflix. I know I needed to learn special effects, After Effects, and a bunch of things. And yeah, just it paid off. Like it took lots of work. I was really burned out, like totally burned out at the end. But the first video I made got, I think in the first week, maybe 6,000 views. No, maybe more than that. I don't know. But right now it has 150,000 views for my first real video. That's pretty good because the quality is there. And I think from this video alone, I grow maybe 3,000, 4,000 followers. Then I made another one that didn't really work about how to find IDs. And then I published the 200,000 startup acquisition, which is a way bigger project and took me way longer. But again, the quality is there and people are watching the video.
I was 100% sure that you outsourced the editing of those videos.
In my case, YouTube, when I made the first video, I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't want to spend money on something that could not work. Now my channel doesn't have monetization. Somehow I'm blocked from monetization. I don't know why. I don't want to reinvest on it directly. I might do it in the future, but I want to delegate properly. I wanted to be able to know how to do it myself. So it was important for me to understand all part of the process. That way I can delegate if I want and need to. So in any case, I wanted to learn how to do it.
Your videos are incredibly high quality. You produced every second of these videos. You wrote the videos, all the editing, all the effects, all the transitions, the thumbnail, everything is all you.
Yeah, like
incredible.
Every single thing. Yeah.
Like 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10. I'm super, super impressed. When I saw that, I was like,
Thanks.
Oh, he sold the startup for 200 grand. He has a little bit of cash. He invested in an editor. That's what I thought when I looked at your videos. So congratulations, man. That's awesome. Maybe I don't want to spend too much time talking about how you sold the app for 200 grand because you already have a YouTube video about it and people can go watch that. But very briefly, Can you just walk through what that app was and talk through the sale process? We don't need to spend more than 10 minutes on it.
So the app I sold for 200 was Talk Notes. It's an app to, I don't know, it's like AI voice memo sort of. If you have ideas, and I had this problem where I often forgot my ideas, or I didn't want to type everything. I just had the idea in my mind and I just like to let it out. So I just record myself talking, even if it's not grammatically correct, or it's just random ideas. And the AI then use the transcript to properly format it however I want. If I want a bullet point list, a summary, or whatever. It's great for brainstorming or even like writing blog posts. So there is like lots of use cases. It's just a brain dump, like a voice brain dump. So yeah, that was the base concept of the app. It's just AI voice memo.
And was this success partially a function of timing as well? Like you were early to AI? Because now what you're describing, there are like thousands of tools that do that. Right? Yeah. Why do you think you were successful?
So for this one, timing was not the reason, because I was not the first one. There were already lots of existing apps that were pretty successful, but I was the first one to use ads to grow it. All of the competitors grow organically. I think there was one like AudioPen, and the guy was the first one to do it, and he grew like crazy because he went viral on Twitter. The guy didn't have a really big audience. He just posted about it and people thought it was cool and he got sales from it. I wasn't the first one. I posted on Twitter. It barely got any traction. The goal was, I didn't even plan to post it on Twitter. I wanted to grow it with ads. I know that was the kind of app that can be grown with ads because it's like there is a clear target. It's a bit general. Yeah, I just listed on directories. There's an AI for that. It's like a website that people visit to learn about new product, etc. So I listed there. I got a few sales because most of the competitors were either really big companies, so they were not really on Twitter, or you had the opposite, like AudioPen, which was fully on Twitter, but no marketing other than that. I was one of the first to publish in those directories, so I got traction from it. And then I started, like, I also launched on Product Hunt. I got Product of the Day because the product, like, I had a mobile app and the product was good at this point. I improved it based on some feedback, so it was really good. So I got Product of the Day. Obviously, I have a Twitter audience, so that also helped. Then I started running ads, and that's where it grew fast. It worked because of the distribution, not because of the idea or the timing.
And the app was good, and you were right about the idea. So you made selling your apps like 250, 270 grand. Okay, from the sales. Mm-hmm. How much revenue did all those apps generate before you sold them? The first one was 20 grand. What about the second one?
So the first one, I think, was 20 grand of profit. The total sales were maybe 30,000 of sales. I think Talk Notes was 70 or 80,000 of sales. And in profit, that should be around 30,000 because I just reinvested everything. I was just reinvesting everything I could into growing it with ads.
Okay, so 50,000 of profit plus 260. So a little over 300 grand in total income, like profitable income, forgetting taxes. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money, right? Especially if you're living in Thailand and Bali, but it does run out eventually. So are you just living off of that income, or do you have other apps that are generating some sales? How do you sustain yourself even though you've had these one-off successes?
Right now, I have three main sources of income. First, I have the interest from the exit money. It's not much, but it's $500 per month, which is 100% passive. I don't have to do anything. It's just there. I do have other apps that generate a little bit of income. I have many of them, but a few ones generate money. And I also have my Facebook ads guide, which also generate a bit of income. So right now it's both living on savings, plus income from my apps and the interests. I would say I'm break even or maybe slight loss. So I'm not losing lots of money. That's why I want to get on the main project again, because I launched a lot of things since then. Most of it failed until 2 weeks ago. The one I launched 2 weeks ago really worked. It's just existing stuff.
You have your base of money and you're treading water with your expenses and your default alive, and you have the ability to keep trying new projects until you find something that works.
Yeah, I really don't want to touch the savings because I got interest. So every dollar I take away from this saving is money I made every month. But yeah, so right now it's mainly savings and a little bit of income I got from my other projects.
So what is your new project? It's adstemplate.com.
So I launched that 2 weeks ago because so I had the Facebook ads guide and I sent an email asking for feedback. Hey, what can I improve? How can I make the guide better? The number one thing that people asked after some technical stuff were about creative. Hey, the course is great, but I don't have ideas for creatives. So, I'm using pretty much the same templates for every project I launch and they work. So you need to understand how to adapt them to your project, to customize them. But I was like, yeah, I can probably sell that as like an app to browse ads and get instructions to make them. Again, I just did pre-orders. Since then, I made 17,000. That's probably in 2 weeks, something like that. So yes, it's pre-orders. I know it was going to work somehow because I had already an audience like of existing customers. So it's even better than existing audience on random people on Twitter. This is people who already purchased from me. So I know that like they asked me for it and I did it. So I know it was going to work, but I still wanted to do pre-launch, but I did pre-launch with like not a finished product, but something already, like they could directly access templates. So yeah, that's the one I launched recently.
People, you can find all of Nico's projects by going to his website, which I'll link in the description below. It's a pre-order. People who have paid you haven't been delivered anything yet.
So the app already exists. It's more like early access with very limited content. So there is, like, I think right now there is 3 template, like examples, like templates available and 30 ads, but I keep adding content. It's just because it takes time to collect all the ads, making the templates and everything. So it's not something that I can release in one day, but I wanted to give access as soon as possible to users.
So if I pay you $49 now, I get a couple of ad templates, and then when it's released, I get everything for life. A couple things I notice about this. Number one, your promotion and copywriting is exceptional. I'm about to launch a paid ad campaign for a couple things I'm working on. I am like someone with buying intent and a potential target customer. And I'm reading this and it's just resonating. I've read a lot about copywriting and I'm promoting my stuff online, and I understand the basics of how to convince people to take action. And what you've done here is really excellent. So how did you learn to build convincing narratives on your landing pages, manipulate people's psychology into perceiving your product? Because I'm already considering if I would buy.
So that's really about copywriting. That's something I always was interested in, like psychology, understanding people, etc. So naturally, when I started doing entrepreneurship, I heard about copywriting, marketing, and I wanted to learn more. Like, how do I convince people to buy my stuff? So I just spend hours and hours reading books, sometimes really old books that are really hard to read, from like the 30s. Because it was when it all got discovered, like when all the breakthrough in consumer psychology were discovered was in between like the 30s and the 60s, like maybe 80s. Most of the recent books are taking from that, but I wanted the source material. So I don't even know how many books I read, but everything I could find, I read it. And yeah, that's how I learned. And I think also doing e-commerce really helped because I was doing dropshipping. And one main thing is in dropshipping is you launch a product, it doesn't work, you move on. So I had to make lots of product page over and over again. So it really helped me make that, work the muscle. And I think I was decent at it, but even more like recently, I really started making products for people I understood. So for example, advertising, I know what things work because one of the headline is grow your app, grow your software fast, or something like that. Find new users for your software fast. And I know that this is a kind of message that resonates with the audience because I'm part of the audience. So I know what I would want. Like if that was me, I know exactly how I would promote it. So it's really about knowing your audience. For example, I have another app where I know absolutely nothing about the audience. I'm not a user myself. I cannot even use the app. I talk with users and have a fairly good conversion rate on the landing page. The app is not one I disclose publicly because it's one I work on the side and I don't want people to start copying and everything, but it's like an industry I know nothing about. I did interviews with people from the industry to understand what pain point the app solved. I adapted the copywriting on that. I have a pretty decent conversion rate on the landing page now. So it's really about really understanding deeply your users and what makes them tick and why would they be interested in your product, etc.
All right, man. So this has been really good. I'll touch on a couple more things before we wrap up here. The theme of this show is mental health and entrepreneurship. I experienced some depression after my first business failed. So I like to talk to people about what they've gone through. You mentioned when you were learning how to code and building your apps, you were super stressed. What have been some of the hardest things you have had to endure on your journey to getting your first couple of wins?
When I was just starting out, I had no idea if it was going to work. I had no idea what I would do with my life. So lack of certitude is absolute number one thing. And I think that's the case for every entrepreneur. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And the main thing is just lack of certitude. Maybe tomorrow my business is not going to perform income as well, and I have no idea why.
How do you deal with it?
I don't know. I doubt. That's something I'm always stressed about. Even if I have lots of money, I have a good amount of cash now, so I'm a bit more safe. But there is always a big FOMO, especially with AI. AI is going to replace everyone. I'm going to be out of business, whatever. I'm overall really stressed. I think in the last 5 years, I aged twice faster. I have white hairs and I'm only 27. I'm stressed and that's how it is. So, yeah.
How do you deal with the constant rejection of putting up apps that go nowhere? You have ads template, it's good, couple sales here, maybe you sold a couple, that's really awesome. But most of your apps are like crickets, right? Most of them die actually. How do you deal with, I just put in all this work, I put up the app, dead, right? Again, and again, and again. What is that like for you?
So first, I have this mindset that don't get emotionally attached to your products. And I think that was the main reason why I was able to ship that many apps in the first year. I was mainly focused on shipping lots of apps because I wanted to learn. So it's like I had a reason to ship lots of apps. I also didn't know what was working. So it was a good way for me to learn. Now I can afford to ship a bit slower and better quality products, take a bit more time to polish the edges. The funny thing is I have 40,000 followers on Twitter and I launched an app, I think in October, which was one I spent the most time working on. Like I spent 1 month working on it, which is something I never do, but that's my favorite app by far. I launched it and I got 2 sales. That's one of the worst performer I had. And so I was a bit depressed, was like, okay, this is the market. I was disappointed, but I don't know. It's not, you have to get over it. You have to not get emotionally attached to your product. I was really disappointed because I really hoped that this one would work and I could work on it full time. I still work on it. It's still active. It gets users, but it's not as much as I wanted. I also haven't done much marketing for it, so that also doesn't help. But yeah, it's just you have to really see your app as an experiment. I'm going to learn this. Is this going to work or is this not going to work? I think this is the difference between art and, I don't know, business. It's like art, you do it for yourself. So obviously you get emotionally attached to it. You want to make everything perfect, but that's not business. Business is you solve a problem for people and that's it. If your solution is good enough, they will pay for it. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Art, it's not art. So you don't have to make it perfect. People are fine with if it's a bit rough, as long as it works, it's fine. So I think that's the main difference. You should see your project as businesses and not art.
Good advice. I think the way I close out these interviews is by going through these sort of rapid fire questions. And one of the questions is, as an entrepreneur, you're constantly bombarded with everyone's advice. You should do this, you should do that, da, da, da. Most of it's bullshit. But I was going to ask what your best piece of advice is. And it sounds not getting emotionally attached to anything you do has been one of your greatest assets.
Yeah, I think I would say that's probably one of the best things I've done. Otherwise, you just spend 5 months working on a project that no one is interested about.
What is a piece of advice you received that you really disagree with? Or the worst advice you've ever received?
Yeah, lots of people are like, oh, work-life balance, etc. For me, personally, everyone is different, but I think for me, that doesn't work. I'm either all in or nothing. If I'm into something, if I have something to do, I cannot go asleep until it's completely finished. So it's if I start something, for example, learning video editing, I won't do anything else until it's done. I learned video editing. I skipped the gym. I was waking up and sleeping at terrible hours. I was just grinding. And I think so far that served me well. I don't really believe in balance. If I need a break, I take a full break. I will spend like 10 days non-stop playing video games, not doing anything else or going on vacation or whatever. But yeah, I don't like, especially when you are trying to get a business running or do something new, etc., then it's going to be really hard, take lots of effort. When you are in maintenance, if you have a business that's running and you just need to do a bit of support every day, then sure, you can. But until you are at this point, that's going to be hard. So for me, what worked the best is to grind like crazy until I'm done with what I need to be done.
There's definitely camps on that, and you fall very clearly in one camp. I'd say I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm definitely not balanced all the time. I work a lot, but I try to take a break once every 7 days. To work 6 days a week, not 7. Next question. What do you personally suck at? But no one's good at everything. What is your biggest weak point or blind spot?
Creativity, I would say. It's like I'm really bad at coming up with new things. I'm good at like finding things that exist and tweaking them a little bit, but coming up with new things like design idea. If you ask me to design a landing page without any reference, I couldn't do it. So anything like artistic, I suck at it. Copywriting, you should do it based on existing data from customers, like research, and not invent things. So it's different. But yeah, I think creativity is definitely not my strength.
So how do you solve for that? Because a lot of your output seems very creative.
Yeah, it might seem like it, but I take inspiration just everywhere I can. So for example, for my landing pages, I browse tons of landing pages, find the best one I want to give like the vibe I want, and I take that as reference and try to mix things together. There is a great website for that. It's called Landing Folio. It's a great source to get design ideas. But yeah, I rarely create things from scratch. I like to get inspiration from existing stuff.
I will put this in the description below. This is a great resource that I will use.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's why I think AI is great for people like me, because then if I want to generate something, I can just describe it and I don't have to do it from scratch, or I can get ideas. Yeah.
Aim to your younger entrepreneur or pre-entrepreneur self when you first struck out on your own to do.
I'm hesitating between don't play League of Legends or nothing at all, because everything I did put me on what I'm here today. And even if it's much slower than I was expecting, it's still on the way to where I want to be. So I'm pretty satisfied with the path I did. It's just a bit slow. And I think League of Legends didn't help with the speed.
Nice, man. What do you think are the biggest misconceptions that people have about what it means to be an entrepreneur and starting your own business?
I have no idea, honestly.
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Okay. Better question. This is particularly relevant to you, right? Hit me with your top 1, 2, or 3 business ideas right now, like 1 or 2 lines.
What do you mean? The one I want to work on?
Yeah, or like your top business ideas. Like you may work on them, you may not. What are your top ideas?
For me, a good idea is an idea that generate money. Obviously, notes, make logo, maker ads, and ads template are my best ideas, because those are the ones that generate the most money.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
For me, a good idea is an idea that works. So that's going to.
Do you have any ideas that you're thinking about working on?
I've been playing around with video game making, because this is one of my long-term projects, is to open like a video game studio. And just by doing that, I found things that annoyed me, something that you have to do over and over again. I think that when I have a bit of free time, I will make a software to automate it. I won't reveal the exact ideas live, because that's something I want to work on. I guess it didn't really answer the question then.
No, it's okay. Sometimes it's hard. It looks like you're a guy who the ideas come to and then you work on. You don't have a big bank of ideas that you're always thinking about.
Yeah, eventually I have some free time and I just work on the next ideas. I don't have much reserve, let's say.
I appreciate the time. This has been really fun. I think people will benefit from hearing your story, and you've done a lot of interesting stuff, and you're in a place that a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs want to be. So I appreciate your time and you being candid and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Hey guys, did you know we are in the middle of an algorithm hunger crisis? The algorithm survives on a diet of likes, comments, and subscribes, but it has a bottomless appetite. Like and comment on this video and subscribe to my channel to make sure the algorithm doesn't go to bed hungry tonight. I'll see you in the next one.